and we kind of go on a journey with them in this hospital, which we kind of built to be also a little bit of a character. It's not the way.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday, February 26th, 2026, and I've got everything you need for your rush hour ride home. There's a lot to cover today. Lisa Rinna is claiming she was drugged at the Traitors party following her season of The Traitors, and I'll share what she had to say about that. The captain from Below Deck is heading to court, alleging a general contractor scammed her out of millions. We're also looking at Laura Owens and whether she may avoid jail time, as details of a possible plea deal start to surface. Former The Bachelor lead Clayton Echard is teasing what might be included in that agreement, and we'll have to read between the lines a bit. First up though, a newly unsealed voice notes from Justin Baldoni to Blake Lively when she was cast in his film It Ends With Us. The audio is interesting because, listening to it, you can start to see what some might argue was the origin of tension between them. That doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong, and it certainly doesn't automatically justify a lawsuit. But it does offer context that could be interpreted in different ways. In the voice note, Baldoni praises Lively after a fitting, telling her she looked beautiful and that the wardrobe would work perfectly. From a director's standpoint, it sounds like reassurance about how she appeared in costume. Some might argue it's simply professional feedback meant to make an actor feel confident. Others might say any comment about appearance could be sensitive territory, depending on how it's received. Context matters. He also asks for her genius marketing brain and her executive producer input, signaling that he valued her perspective before filming even began. That detail could cut against any argument that she had no autonomy or influence on the project. It suggests he was inviting collaboration rather than limiting her role. Where things get more delicate is when Baldoni explains that before Lively was officially announced, many fans had hoped another actress, Abigail Cohen, would play the younger version of Lily. He notes that Cohen is beautiful and talented but ultimately didn't resemble Lively closely enough for the film he wanted to make. While he may have been trying to be transparent about the casting process, telling your lead actress that fans were rooting for someone younger for years is the kind of comment that could unintentionally land the wrong way. Not harassment, just perhaps unnecessary information that might spark insecurity or tension. After that, we'll turn to reports that Hillary Clinton is being deposed in connection with the Epstein files. Unexpected development and a case out of New York City where someone is facing charges for allegedly throwing a snowball at a police officer. It's a packed rundown today, and we're diving into all of it. He goes on to say, she's beautiful but doesn't look like Blake. And again, on its face, that's not an insult. But imagine telling your spouse, there's this beautiful woman, she just doesn't look like you. Even if you mean nothing by it, you're stepping into risky territory. Context matters, timing matters, delivery matters. Blake Lively had just had her third or fourth child around that time. Anyone who's been around a new parent knows how exhausting that season can be. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, total physical and emotional depletion. If you're already feeling vulnerable and then you hear that for 2 years fans were pushing for a younger actress to play the role you just landed, that could sting a little. Not because anyone did something objectively wrong, but because actors, especially leads on major projects, often operate in a space where image, age, and perception are magnified. This isn't about condemning Justin Baldoni, it's about nuance. If I was sitting next to him while he recorded that message, I might have said, maybe cut that part. Let her believe she was always the only choice. Sometimes less transparency is kinder in a creative partnership, especially when we know the character's age reportedly had to be adjusted to fit Blake Lively in It Ends With Us. That alone suggests age was part of the conversation behind the scenes, whether explicitly or implicitly. The bigger question becomes motivation. Blake has made serious claims about how she felt treated during the production process, including concerns about autonomy and involvement. If early interactions felt off to her, even subtly, could that have shaped how she interpreted everything that followed? That doesn't prove wrongdoing. It just acknowledges how fragile creative dynamics can be on a film set. Lead actors are often handled with extreme care. I've worked on sets where, instead of saying, she's needed on set, they'd phrase it delicately. We'd like to invite Miss Lively to set at this time. There's a reason for that. Egos, yes, but also vulnerability. Acting requires exposure, emotionally and physically. So when Baldoni mentions vacillating over casting a fan-favorite younger actress as young Lily, even framing it as a marketing strategy, you can see how that might land awkwardly. Again, not harassment, not an attack, just maybe not the most strategic thing to say aloud to your lead. Switching gears. There's movement in the Laura Owens case involving former The Bachelor star Clayton Echard. Owens, who previously claimed Echard got her pregnant, has reportedly been offered a plea deal instead of going to trial. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office isn't discussing the specific terms, but during a pretrial conference it was confirmed that the plea deal originally set to expire has now been extended to April 24. What's striking is how mainstream coverage has shifted. For a long time, this story lived almost entirely online. Now local news outlets are reporting on it with full studio segments, Meanwhile, Owens continues filing restraining orders, including one against a YouTuber, and the question remains whether she faced jail time. There are reportedly 14 counts involved, some tied to investigative work that gained traction through online communities following the case closely. At this point, the real suspense isn't whether there's a deal on the table, it's what the final outcome will be, and whether accountability includes actual time behind bars or something less severe. Clayton Echard is drawing attention to just how serious the Laura Owens case remains. He's pointing out that while the legal system is doing its best, the proposed accountability may not be enough to stop her from continuing harmful actions. Months of community advocacy were necessary just to get investigators and the district attorney to even pay attention to the case. Owens initially faced 7 charges, which later doubled to 14, and she has continued committing new offenses, including lying under oath during a bankruptcy hearing. Her home is set to go up for auction, and she has publicly claimed she has never earned a penny in her life, adding layers of controversy and chaos. Echard's message emphasizes the emotional toll on victims. He describes how Owens has repeatedly targeted those around her, including both male and female victims, former friends, and anyone who crosses her. Her methods include attempts to cancel people professionally, reaching out to employers and contacts to disrupt careers or reputations. For those covering or involved in the case, this has meant constant vigilance, worry, and stress about how far her influence might reach. He launched the podcast, Love Trap, to document his experience with the paternity scandal and to provide transparency about the ongoing legal situation. While he can't disclose all details of the plea deal, he stresses that the consequences Owens may face might not be sufficient to prevent her from causing further harm. The trial, scheduled for the end of July, represents the last opportunity for victims and supporters to ensure accountability. Echard repeatedly calls on the community to stay engaged, highlighting that the widespread support was crucial in bringing this case into the public eye and keeping attention on it. This story also touches on larger systemic issues, including how male victims of manipulation or harassment are often overlooked. Echard makes it clear that the focus shouldn't be on the gender of victims but on the behavior of Owens and its impact on anyone in her path. He stresses the importance of confronting harmful behavior, supporting victims, and discussing mental health and accountability, rather than dismissing concerns simply because a victim is physically imposing or traditionally perceived as tough. Ultimately, Echard's message is one of vigilance, community support, and persistence. Ensuring that justice is served requires awareness, advocacy, and continued attention to prevent Owens from continuing her pattern of harm. The story continues with an intense mix of drama, legal battles, and shocking incidents. Clayton Echard's podcast highlights how a community is formed around the male victims of Laura Owens, offering them protection and support as they navigate her ongoing manipulation. Despite the chaos, he notes that the resilience and solidarity built among these men is one positive outcome from a harrowing situation. The collateral damage, however, is Owens facing consequences for her repeated offenses. Meanwhile, Lisa Rinna has claimed she was drugged with fentanyl at the Traitors after testing confirmed high levels of fentanyl, amphetamines, and other substances in her system. Details are still emerging, and investigations are ongoing as authorities look into who could have been responsible. In sports news, golfer Andrea Pavin suffered a severe accident after falling down an elevator shaft. When the doors opened without the car being present, he sustained serious injuries, a reminder of the dangers of even everyday environments. Back in entertainment, Below Deck captain Sandy went to court to confront a contractor accused of stealing $15 million and leaving her home unfinished. She demanded accountability for the destruction and financial harm caused, highlighting the community's role in supporting those affected by fraud. On the political front, Hillary Clinton was deposed over her knowledge of the Jeffrey Epstein case, asserting that she had no direct encounters with Epstein, nor had she visited his properties or flown on his plane. Critics have pointed out her association with Epstein-adjacent figures, like Ghislaine Maxwell, at public events. The deposition raises questions about consistency and transparency, especially considering ongoing concerns involving Donald Trump, whose alleged interactions with minors in Epstein-related investigations remain under scrutiny. DOJ files reportedly omit key interviews, leaving transparency in question. These stories, ranging from Hollywood controversies to high-profile legal and political battles, show a mix of personal resilience, systemic flaws, and ongoing investigations. They reflect the complexity of holding people accountable in situations where influence, privilege, and danger intersect. The final segment dives into a mix of social issues, government accountability, and lighter oddities from around the country. A mother was reportedly pepper-sprayed in her car along with her 3 children, highlighting ongoing concerns over ICE enforcement practices and the misallocation of resources that many argue do little to improve everyday American lives. The broader point is that accountability shouldn't depend on political affiliation. Whether information emerges from Hillary Clinton's deposition or others connected to Epstein, justice must be pursued. Meanwhile, FBI Director Christopher Wray, referred to as Kash Patel in some accounts, has been accused of abusing government resources for personal leisure, including using a private FBI jet for international trips and attending his girlfriend's events, raising questions about ethics and fiscal responsibility. In New York, law enforcement arrested a 27-year-old man for assault after repeated criminal behavior, this time linked to throwing snow at officers in Washington Square Park. The situation sparked debate over what constitutes assault in the context of snowball fights, with factors like intent, force, and crowd size influencing public opinion. Throughout all of this, the overarching themes remain accountability, community vigilance, and the intersection of power, privilege, and responsibility. The episode concluded with reminders to engage with ongoing coverage, to support the victims in high-profile cases, and follow up on new developments, including an upcoming interview with Stephanie Young, the creator of the docuseries covering Clayton Asirid's case. Finally, fans were invited to stay connected via social media, podcast subscriptions, Patreon, and live shows, with appearances planned across North Carolina, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Boston. The emphasis was on community, awareness, and continued engagement as these stories evolve.